Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for, well, the 28th. As we get close to the end of the month, got over my TradeStation difficulties here, but we had a brief breakdown of magenta below yellow, but again, it was more the beginning of the short starting to rise that actually created some movement. We had a DOC spread right at the same time, and that sort of triggered that nice move lower. We came just below the ABM, but then hit the 76 and bounced off both, and then stayed above the ABM green from there on, and then just fought against the ABM yellow. And then today, starting above the ABM yellow, it becomes fairly straightforward. You're above the ABM green, you move to the long side, particularly if you have intraday readings suggesting it. And then once you're move back above ABM yellow, it's going to be resistance until it breaks through it. Did the other day over the weekend, and now we're seeing it coming right back to where it was before. And of course, we're heading towards the final stretch of the election. And, this is where the money is being pushed back and forth to see who they think is going to be the best trade overall, and where to be positioned when those policies will start, even though it's not going to happen until next year. Getting a head start, so to speak. But NQ, you can see performing much nicer after the single down day, moving all the way back up, and still very weak from a short standpoint. And without that short interest, you get a little bit more difficulty in the rise. The bonus is that the S&P had much higher MBI white readings, and that give a little bit more of that ability to force the short cover reads. From a treasury standpoint, they're demanding higher rates. And of course, when this reaches a certain point, as we get down towards the 88 level of that, well, then you might have some competition. At least then at that point, it would make somewhat more sense. Now, some of the Trump trade would believe that, well, you've got a deflationary situation because he's going to support oil, and that would certainly reduce costs, which obviously is the ultimate benefactor for cutting inflation. Cheap energy always has been, always will be. Seems fairly obvious, but some people don't believe it. Regardless of that, oil taking a bit of a hit. There wasn't much of a problem with the Iranian strike, so for say, perhaps that's all finished then, and nobody's going to be the worse for it. So from that standpoint, not as bad as it could have been. So, given that you don't have as big a trauma from everyone. The euro, of course, is in major world hurt, particularly if Trump comes in. It's a disaster for the euro. They'll be subpar without any question. It's the tariff construct, and that strikes terror into the minds of some of these because they've been taking advantage of U.S. trade for decades. From a gold standpoint, it's not going to stop. Trump actually coming in would create a block to gold movement because you might see some reduction in the excess spending, but not from what you hear from tax cuts on down, and that deficits would still be exploding regardless. And so I think the gold may not be as dramatic an increase, but it will still continue to rise. Definitely Harris wins, and gold's just going to continue to skyrocket. No question about it. From a crypto standpoint, of course, it's going to vary on both of those counts too. The Trump idea trade for it has been supportive of crypto. Harris, then not so much. So you have a divergence between the two of them, and that will have some impact. But overall, it's going to follow the devaluation of the dollar. It's just typical for it. You can see the divergence between ETH and Bitcoin. ETH having much more difficulty, Bitcoin seemingly being the most popular one. 50K is not quite up there. From an intraday standpoint on Friday, you can see we ended up with a nice pre-market run-up and all positive extremes. And all we did was just fill those all back in during the regular session. And once they got more puts excited and everything like that, you jump into the opposite side right before the close there. And now you have the big pump up here. We're, plus 28 on the ES right now. So puts will be destroyed, and start the week for call buyers. So back and forth. And of course, we're approaching the 29th, and the historic reference is that. But the fact that the election is getting closer really is going to force people to either get scared, pull out, and then we're just going to continue with these gyrations. So kind of exciting stuff. As always, though, we just continue to follow the readings. Have a good one. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.